I hope they don't get.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fox 10 News Now 6:30 p.m. show on this beautiful Monday. Just happens to be my birthday as well, so thank you all for watching on my birthday. That is a nice present that you guys are giving tonight. So we got a lot of stuff to be talked about today, including the Arizona Cardinals huge win, and a bunch of other stories from, Donald Trump spoke today. He issued his own idea on what his taxes layout would be. So we're going to get into that and a bunch of other things, including also a story out of Tennessee where a gay student was denied homecoming dance privileges. So we will also be showcasing that story as well as some other things. But the big story today was really this whole accident on 43rd Avenue near I-10. It put a lot of people in the hospital, and for that we have the latest headlines for that, and I'll get right to it. Out of Tennessee, where a gay student was denied homecoming dance privileges. So we will Okay, we're going to work on this situation on the audio. Hold on one second. We'll show you a little 10-day here. All right, we did fix the problem here, so we will be now going to the top headlines.
This was an ugly scene. 6 people hurt in a 4-truck crash. This was a big crash. The driver and his passenger then took off, but it didn't take police long to catch up with them. A big part of 43rd Avenue near I-10 is closed while this investigation continues.
Carrie, let me give you a closer look at what happened today. An officer pulled the suspect
Hey there,
over
I was able to get it. For some reason, the Matrix,
pulled him over,
it wasn't giving me audio, but on the, for some reason, my little media player thing was down. Not in the system, but on the actual media player. So sorry about that.
As we mentioned, 6 people hurt, both the driver and passenger.
Yep, we are
took
good.
off. The passenger collapsed at the scene. Now, police found the driver hiding in a shed in that neighborhood right there just south of I-10. Let's check in with Jessica Flores. She's in that neighborhood right now where this all came to an end, at least for the driver. What's the story there, Jess?
Well, this is still a very active scene here. There's still debris everywhere along the road, and that suspect's gray truck is still behind me. Police say there's possibly drugs inside. And an innocent man caught up in this crash is now fighting for his life at the hospital. The crash, so forceful, left this white SRP truck turned over. The 4 people inside now at the hospital. 1 man is in critical condition. A total of 5 cars involved in the crash at 43rd Avenue and the I-10. And the driver responsible, according to investigators, was trying to get away from police. His gray truck was stopped moments earlier on the I-10 freeway at 59th Avenue.
The guy gave him his driver's license, and then for whatever reason he thought he could then evade us. He took off. The officer actually didn't chase him because he knew, I have the guy's driver's license, I know who he is.
Investigators say during that initial traffic stop, the officer noticed drugs in the gray truck.
We do have indications that yes, he is known to us and has been involved in drug transactions in the past.
Police say the suspect and a woman in the gray truck ran from the scene after the crash.
There's a male suspect who we ended up finding hiding in a residential shed in the neighborhood, and an adult female suspect who also tried to flee on foot after the collision, but I'm told she collapsed, maybe because of her injuries.
Now, both suspects recovering in the hospital as detectives comb through the truck, collecting the evidence inside. And police have not released identities of the victims or the suspects at this hour. As for this scene, 43rd Avenue at I-10 will remain closed for the next several hours. If you're coming from downtown Phoenix, you can exit 43rd Avenue, but only go northbound. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Flores, Fox 10 News.
All right, Jess, thank you. Just in at 5, a former Maricopa County detention officer found guilty of criminal damage and not guilty on 6 other charges, including sexual assault. William Edmond was arrested after a woman came forward saying that he'd been abusing her for years. Edmond did admit to police that he once put an unloaded gun in the victim's mouth and threatened to kill her in front of her kids. His sentencing date has been set for a week from today.
A car goes into a ditch in the West Valley. Sky Fox over the scene this morning off the Loop 101 freeway in Camelback, not too far from the University of Phoenix Stadium. Now, it's not clear right now why the car went off the road or if anyone was hurt.
Well, you may have seen it. A car caught fire on I-10 this afternoon near 67th Avenue. You can see all the emergency vehicles there. Thick smoke coming from the car before crews finally put it out. No word on what started it.
Tina's dad and his friend behind bars after a late-night accident in North Phoenix. Police say the 19-year-old driver admitted to drinking before driving about twice the speed limit on Cave Creek Road. Fox 10's Andrew Hasman joins us with more on the crash and the surveillance video that captured it all. Andrew.
Carrie, the driver crashed into a car dealership going more than 80 miles per hour early Sunday morning. While the passenger was killed, the driver was able to walk away.
In the video, you can see the car headed south on Cave Creek Road. The driver loses control, slamming into the dealership's cars and finally stopping just past the intersection of Cave Creek and Mountain View. At the dealership today, cleanup. The owner of Prime Auto Sales says the crash damaged about 5 cars. 1 car was totaled.
overall costs were probably $60,000. You know, but the sad thing here is the death of the kid. You know, the damage in the car, that could be fixed. You know, the loss of a young kid, that's what's really depressing here today.
Police say 19-year-old Jose Perez was ejected from the car and later died. The driver, Salvador Diaz, was able to walk away from the crash. He was found by a police officer hiding in some bushes not far from the crash scene. According to court documents, Diaz blew a .165, more than twice the legal limit. Police say he admitted to having 6 or 7 beers before getting behind the wheel of his car and driving more than 80 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. At the scene of the crash, dealership staffers helped set up a memorial to the 19-year-old victim.
We like to do what we can to help the family through this sad time. If we could just decorate it and have them a place to come over here and mourn, I mean, I'm more than happy to set that up for them.
And the dealership has offered to donate to the victim's family $100 of every car sold from now until the end of October. As for the driver, Salvador Diaz, he was booked for manslaughter. I'm Andrew Hasbun, Fox 10 News.
Thanks, Andrew. This video may be a wake-up call for a lot of women. How many times have you hooked your purse over the back of the chair? You do this, right?
I did it this weekend.
Well,
Thankfully, mine didn't disappear.
Well, that's the thing. A crook and surprise took advantage of this situation. Somebody took a woman's purse right off the back of a chair at a business near Greasewood Street in Bell. The suspect later used credit cards from the stolen purse to buy merchandise at several businesses.
First on Fox.
Wow, so obviously a lot of news that happened today and over the weekend, and we will be following more news as it does become available to us. But I do want to show you guys the video that happened earlier today. Donald Trump laid out a tax plan that he thinks is going to make the country great again. That's what his little tagline there. So we're going to go to a press conference from Donald Trump, and you know those are always have a bunch of sound bites in them.
Individuals will be at levels that you haven't seen in a long time. We're going to cut the individual rates from 7 brackets to 4. Simplification. 25%, 20%, 10%, and 0. If you're single and earn less than $25,000 per year, or married and jointly earn less than $50,000. So, very important. If you're single and earn less than $25,000, or married and jointly earn less than $50,000, you'll not pay any income tax, nothing. This eliminates very strongly and quickly the marriage penalty, very unfair penalty. It eliminates the AMT, which is the alternative minimum tax. It ends the death tax. It's a double taxation. A lot of families go through hell over the death tax. It reduces or eliminates most of the deductions and loopholes available to special interests and to the very rich. In other words, it's going to cost me a fortune, which is actually true, while preserving charitable giving and mortgage interest deductions, very importantly. It ends the current tax treatment of carried interest. Those are the hedge fund folks that I've been talking about for quite a while. They make a lot of money, carried interest. So it ends the current tax treatment of carried interest for speculative partnerships that do not grow businesses or create jobs and are not risking their own capital. Changes for business. Now, so important, because it's all about business, it's all about jobs. We have 93 million people in this country that are in serious trouble, that want to work, they can't work. So for business, no business of any size, from a Fortune 500 company to a mom and pop shop, to a freelancer living from gig to gig, will pay more than 15% of their business income in taxes. big reduction. A one-time deemed repatriation of corporate cash held overseas at significantly discount, which coming back at a significantly discount, 10%. So it comes back discounted at a 10% tax rate and ends the deferral of taxes on corporate income earned abroad. Now, it's called corporate inversion. It's a huge subject. I've been watching politicians now for years, all talk, no action politicians. I've been watching them for years talking about bringing this money back. The number is probably $2.5 trillion. Everybody agrees it should come back. Republicans, Democrats, everybody. They can't make a deal. They don't know how to go about making a deal. The reason companies aren't bringing it back is the tax is onerous. It doesn't make sense to bring it back. And in fact, many companies are leaving the United States. They're leaving our shores to go and collect their money. They're actually moving out of the United States for two reasons. The taxes are too high, and because they have tremendous amounts of money that they can't bring back into this country when everybody wants them to bring it back in. It's called leadership. We will have that money brought back in. As an example, I have millions of dollars overseas. I can't bring it back into this country. We file papers. We've been doing this for a year and a half. You can't get it back in. So the money stays in other countries, and that's what happens. Not good for us. The level of leadership that we need to get things like this done is so important. But this is something, and I've been watching it for a long time, everybody agrees to. We also reduce or eliminate some business loopholes, many of them actually, and deductions made unnecessary or redundant by the new lower tax rate on business income. The tax rate now is so low that a lot of these deductions, which are complicated, which don't make sense, and which are unfair, are gone. And we phase in a reasonable cap on the deductibility of the business interest expense. So we are going to give you, we have a very complex set of papers that actually, if you know business, is not so complex. And we're going to hand them out right now to the press. And I think you'll see, we have an amazing code. It will be simple, it will be easy, it will be fair, it's graduated. As you get up in income, you pay a little more. Some of the very unfair deductions that certain people have been given who make a lot of money will not be available any longer. But I actually believe they'll do better because I think the economy will grow. It'll grow rapidly, and we'll have something very special. Now, with all of that being said, and before we take some questions, we have to cut the costs of what's going on in this country. If you look at what we're doing and the money we're spending, I read where a washer, you know what a washer is? Nuts, bolts, and washer. To send from one state to another, it was a 19-cent washer, and it cost $900 and some odd thousand to send it from here to there. And there are many examples. Hammers that cost $800 that you can buy in a store for a tiny amount of money. We will run this country properly. There is so much money to be saved. We're reducing taxes, but at the same time, if I win, if I become president, we will be able to cut so much money and have a better country. We won't be losing anything other than we'll be balancing budgets and getting them where they should be. So this is a plan that's simple, that's a major reduction. I think people are going to be very happy. We've already had some very good reviews. I did the plan with some of the leading scholars and economists and tax experts that there are in this country. They love it. They say, why hasn't this been done before? And this is my wheelhouse. That's what I do well. The economy is what I do well. Whenever they do polls, I always come out way above everybody else on the economy. And on leadership, by the way, but I won't say that. So if anybody has, wow. Thank you. That's amazing. That's some of the press was actually clapping. I never saw that. I don't think I've ever seen that before. All right, why don't we take some questions from the press? Yes, go ahead. No, I'm not going to do that yet. I have to get their approval. But we have some of the top people in the country worked on this. Well, we're looking at a 3%, but we think it can be 5, it could even be 6. We're going to have growth that will be tremendous. And by the way, if we have more than 3, these numbers are really spectacular. And one of the things that they don't take into account in any big league fashion is the cutting. There is so much waste in government that I believe when I get in there, I'll be able to cut, without losing anything, to cut tremendous amounts off of the, and we're not even showing anything for that. So they're very conservative numbers. Yes, Sarah. Yeah. My taxes will, first of all, I'll have a much simpler tax statement. It'll be much simpler. When I do my return, it'll be my returns go up to the ceiling and beyond, which is ridiculous. And you spend millions of dollars at a high level on lawyers, accountants, and everything else. We want to simplify them to a tremendous level. The bracket of 25, the big difference is many of the loopholes and many of the deductions, which are old, have been there for years, are antiquated in many cases, or are put there because a lot of the people that get these deductions are contributed to Hillary, they're contributing to Bush, they're contributing to every candidate but Trump, because I'm not taking any money, I'm self-funding. And these people want these deductions. There will be people, we're reducing taxes, but believe me, there will be people in the very upper echelons that won't be thrilled with this. We're taking away deductions, and that's one of the reasons we're able to lower it so. Yeah, this is actually a tax reduction. A big tax reduction, including for the upper income. I believe that the economy will do so well that even though they won't be getting certain deductions, which aren't fair for them to be getting, that they'll end up doing better. Okay, yes, go ahead. I just think this is a common sense approach. You know, we could say supply side, you could say there's 15 different names given out for different kinds of reductions or increases. I don't think it's supply side or anything else. I think this is a common sense, well thought out tax proposal that's going to trigger the economy, going to make everybody go back and really want to work. It's going to create tremendous numbers of jobs. One of the other things that I'm coupling this with is if I become president, I'm going to renegotiate our trade deals, because our trade deals are not sustainable by this country, not sustainable. We cannot continue to let our jobs go to all of the different countries. There's not a country that we negotiate with that doesn't make a better deal. Everybody, we lose money with everything. I'm also going to renegotiate some of our military costs because we protect South Korea. We protect Germany. We protect some of the wealthiest countries in the world, Saudi Arabia. We protect everybody. We protect everybody. And we don't get reimbursement. We lose on everything. We lose on everything. So we're going to negotiate and renegotiate trade deals, military deals, many other deals that's going to get the cost down for running our country very significantly. I'm not showing a big number in that, but I believe that if I become president, those numbers are going to be massive. As an example, Saudi Arabia, they make $1 billion a day. We protect them. So we need help. We're losing a tremendous amount of money on a yearly basis, and we owe $19 trillion. I used to say 18 for the last 6-7 months. Now it's 19, and it's only going up. Yes, Tom? Well, now, Senator, look, Senator Rubio is a lightweight. We understand that. He wouldn't be able to do this. He wouldn't know a trade deal from any other deal. And what certain people are trying to do is they're trying to take, we just went up in the last poll, we went up 2 points in the last poll, and we continue to go up. In the NBC poll, I think we went from 26 to 29. We're going up very strongly in the polls. They don't know what to do about it. I've built a great company. You'll see that in 60 Minutes last night. I built a great company. It's a phenomenal company with very little debt, tremendous cash flow. I'm funding my own campaign. Guys like Rubio, I mean, he desperately needs money. Ask the car dealer in Florida. Ask the people that support him. And a guy like Rubio and others, I don't want to single him out. You're singling him out. But they're largely controlled by their donors, the special interests, and frankly, more than anybody else, the lobbyists. I've turned down millions and millions of dollars from lobbyists and special interests because it's not the right thing. It's just not right. And that seems to be resonating very strongly. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I negotiate. It's true, I do. I get bills from people and I negotiate. Or is that a bad thing? The country should do that. Yeah, I would. I'd bring that same attitude to the White House. It's true. She said, I have a habit. When you get a bill, you call up and you negotiate. To me, that's a compliment. No, I want to take that thinking to the White House. I would bet you we could save 20% of our budget. I could even say more, but we could save a tremendous amount. That has to be the attitude our country has. You can't spend millions and millions of dollars on doing something that you can do for $2,000. You know, when you look at costs, we just spent $1 million building a soccer field, okay? A soccer field for our prisoners that happen to be in Guantanamo, okay? I don't like that. What do you need $1 million for? Level out the surface, let them play, if they have to play at all, okay? What do you need to spend $1 million? We just spent, it's a story today, $1 million on a soccer field. How do you spend $1 million doing the soccer field? You have a level piece of land. Throw them a ball, let them play soccer, if they have to play at all. Why are they playing soccer is my question. Okay. Yes, sir, go ahead. No, it's too long. You don't have time. You're not time. All right, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead? Right. No, not at all. We're lowering taxes, which the Republicans love. And I think one of the reasons I am doing so well in the polls, and one of the reasons I'm doing so well when it comes to the economy in all polls, is that this is the thinking. No, we're lowering taxes very substantially, we're simplifying, and we're getting rid of deductions that are actually obsolete, that certain people want to keep for certain reasons. So no, that's not true. Yes, sir, go ahead. Well, Putin was interviewed and I was interviewed last night. I thought Charlie Rose did an excellent job, but I thought his was a softer interview. Scott Pelley interviewed me. I thought Scott was terrific. I mean, it was a tough interview, but I thought he was very fair. And I thought the piece was very good. Yeah, go ahead. Why is he harder on me than Putin? I would say because Putin is a nicer person than I am. Okay, go ahead. Right, right. It's the worst in 36 years. Okay. Well, it's a good question, and you can connect the dots. But I guess it has been probably since '04, you know, you're talking about 10, 11, 12 years, that people have wanted to bring the money back into the country. And again, it's called corporate inversion. And a lot of times the corporations are moving out and they're going to other countries, taking jobs. And now we have a really big problem because we have serious companies, very large, very prestigious companies, as you know. Obviously, you know something about business. But we have major companies looking to move out of the United States. You know, it used to be they'd move from New York to Florida, they'd move from New Jersey to Texas or whatever. Now they're talking about moving from the United States to Ireland and to England and to other places, to Spain, where they get treated differently and, frankly, better. And they're doing that for a number of the reasons, but one of the big reasons, as you know, is taxes. One of the other reasons is to get all of this cash that they've built up and they can't get back into our country. And when this money comes back into our country that everybody wants, it's going to be put to work in our country largely. It can go other places, but largely. And I think it'll be an amazing boon. Now, here's the other thing. They think it's $2.5 trillion. I think it's much more than that. I actually think it's going to be more money than that. And boy, if it is, we have hit pay dirt. Yeah, go ahead, real fast. Well, you know, when you end the repatriation, when you get the money coming back in, beyond, tremendous things happen. Sarah, go ahead. Well, I'll be announcing that in the not-too-distant future. But I will tell you, I've been honest. I'm the only one that's honest about this thing. I watched Romney, and I watched, I pay so much tax, I pay so much tax. I watch all politicians, and they say, I fight like hell to pay as little as possible. Can I say that? I'm not a politician. I fight like hell, always, because it's an expense. And you know, I'd feel, and I fight. I have the best lawyers and the best accountants, and I fight, and I pay. But it's an expense. And frankly, I would feel differently if this country were spending the money wisely instead of throwing it out the drain. Our country spends our money so stupidly. And I will tell you that I can speak for myself. I pay a lot of tax, but I fight like hell to make it as low as possible. But I would feel a lot differently if our leadership was such that I respected the decisions. All you have to do is look at a list of the things that our government is spending money on right now, and you don't feel so good about our country. Yes? Well, I'll tell you what, in terms of income inequality, we're going to create a lot of jobs. You know, right now, we have a false 5.4, 5.3, 5.6. Every month is different. It is such a phony number because when people look and look and look, and then they give up looking for a job, they're taken off the roll, so the number isn't reflective. I've seen numbers of 24%. I actually saw a number of 42% unemployment. 42%! And it could be. Because when you're looking for a job and you go around and you look and you look and you fight and you want to work and you want to take care of your family and then you can't get the job, and you know what I'm talking about because you're shaking your head, and you can't get the job, essentially for statistical purposes, you are considered employed. So then I read, every time it comes out, I hear 5.3% unemployment. That is the biggest joke there is in this country. That number is so false. And you know, people ask, how come Trump is doing so well, and Carson and others? How come they're doing? You know why they're doing well? Because people are tired of political speak. They're tired of that. And the worst example of it, one of the worst examples of it, is the phony unemployment rate. The unemployment rate is probably 20%. But I will tell you, you have some great economists that will tell you it's 30, 32, and the highest I've heard so far is 42%. There's anger out there at the job picture. Now, one other thing. With that being said, China, Japan, Mexico, Brazil, these countries are all taking our jobs like we're a bunch of babies. That will stop. People will treat us fairly if I become president. We are losing our jobs, we're losing our base, we're losing our manufacturing. All of that will stop. Yeah, go ahead. Well, this is number one, it's simplification. Number two, what I'm really doing is the big picture, because corporations now are going to start having an incentive to create jobs. They're going to have an incentive also to stay in this country. They're going to spend, well, if they provide bigger dividends, people are going to have more money to spend. So that's not so bad either. If a corporation gives out a bigger dividend, that's great. Mr. Jones gets a bigger dividend, he's going to have more money to spend in the economy. So that's good. Yes, ma'am. Should Chris Christie what? I know nothing about that. Yeah, go ahead. No, I'm not a populist. No, I'm not. I'm a man of great common sense. I'm a man that's built a tremendous company with the best locations in real estate, the best everything. You're here at one of them. I have many of these. I've done a great job. I've employed tens of thousands of people. I employ now thousands and thousands of people. I've done a good job, but I wouldn't say populist at all. I would say I'm a man of common sense. I'm cutting taxes. I'm going to create a lot of jobs. I'm going to get rid of a tremendous amount of waste. And I'll tell you what, the waste that I get rid of, is going to have a huge impact, and I'm not even putting that in my numbers. So I think it's going to be terrific. All right, how about one more question? Go ahead. Yes, the motor industry. That's a beautiful way of describing it, the motor industry. Where are you from? England. I love oh, what a beautiful accent. No, I want to get the industry, we call it the automobile industry, but I want to get the automobile industry to build factories here. As you know, Ford is building a $2.5 billion factory in Mexico. Mexico also took a big plant out of Tennessee, and Tennessee thought they were going to get it, and they didn't. I want the motor companies, as you would say, or the automobile companies, to build their plants in the United States. I don't want Nabisco leaving for Mexico or any place else. I want these companies not to leave Chicago, not to leave Michigan, not to leave New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina and all of these places where they're leaving and they're going to other countries. I want them to stay here, and they will stay here, and they'll be so happy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a great honor. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So very interesting what Donald Trump is saying. So let me know if you guys agree with those numbers that he is thinking with the unemployment numbers. He thinks it is much, much higher than what is published out there by our government now. So very interesting stuff from Donald Trump. I had to replay that for you guys because a lot of people were wondering if we could play that from earlier. And we did. It's still a lot to come on the show today. ASU, oh boy, have they struggled for football. We'll talk a little bit about that, but at least we have our Cardinals. They're 3-0. Big win for them on Sunday with the 49ers. We'll break it all down for you coming up a little bit later. But I do want to show you the story that I did tease a little bit earlier in the show, and it was about that Tennessee high school student who says his school denied him entry to the homecoming dance because he's gay. So we will play that for you right now. Here we go.
Anderson tells me when he asked if he could take a boy to the dance, this is what administrators at Christian Brothers told him.
I was given several examples of statistics, like they said that gay couples have higher divorce rates and that they're violent and just different things that didn't make sense and I'd come to find aren't true.
Sanderson tells me he didn't expect such a negative response.
They said that specifically as a Catholic school, they couldn't support that, or they didn't think they could at the time, and that they struggled with the idea of me taking a guy to homecoming or prom.
At the time, Sanderson tells me school administrators assured him they would look at the issue.
So they said they were going to work on the issue, and then 2 months went by, and now we're kind of where we started, and they haven't really changed the policy from what he had said would probably happen.
The school issued this statement, which says in part, "No longer is it a date dance. The school has never let boys from other schools attend these dances, as the mixing of boys from other schools in such an open atmosphere can cause problems.
I'd like to know what logistical reasons exist that prevent me from bringing a guy to our homecoming or our prom.
With the homecoming dance fast approaching on Saturday, Sanderson tells me he doesn't think he'll be there.
At this point, I don't know if I'm going to go to the dance. I would like to, but I don't know if I want to go alone.
All right, so that was a story out of Tennessee where that student is fighting to try to go to his homecoming dance. Okay, let me just push this. I hope everyone is having a good evening. How are we doing? It is coming up on 7:15 already, Monday. Wow, the weekend flew by. I don't know if it flew for a lot of you people, but it certainly did for me. Wow. So that was something. I do want to show you this little funny video. There was a monkey on the loose in Florida. You don't believe me? There it is. Look at the monkey that was found in this neighborhood in Florida. They said there was a zoo nearby, and this monkey made his way into the neighborhood. He climbed on top of that car. Talk about some weekend problems for this car owner. Gotta love it. You guys are watching Fox 10 News Now, the 6:30 p.m. stream. We are well underway today. This monkey is really enjoying. He enjoyed his weekend. Hope everyone had a good weekend too. Yeah, you gotta really just kind of love some of these stories sometimes, you know. Monkey on the loose. Too funny. I do have some other interesting news for you as well, including a pastor who grows food for the homeless. Want to take a look at this? We got it.
Despite the ups and downs that come with farming, a Boise pastor is venturing out into the field. New Choices Fellowship pastor Rick Dory now owns this 9.7-acre farm in Emmett. He walked away from his day job 2 years ago to pursue this endeavor and hopes his investment and plan to feed the homeless inspires others to do what they can to somehow give back.
To say that at 60 years of age I'd want to take on a farm and grow food for people to just give away, it wasn't something I would have normally have thought of. But I kept seeing the plight of homelessness. Low-income families couldn't get good quality food.
Right now, he and his wife April are in the middle of constructing an aquaponic greenhouse. The idea is that they can grow food year-round for low-income families and distribute the produce through the organizations Love Inc. and the Mosaic Street Ministries. Pastor Dory also sits on the Boise's coalition that's formed to come up with long-term solutions to combat homelessness.
It's not about moving them around and putting them in places where people can't see them. It's about moving them into places that you can centralize the care.
Pastor Dory accepts anyone who walks into his church, and the same goes here. His vision includes utilizing the entire field, with volunteers and student classes taking time out of their busy schedules to be a part of a growing community that wants to be part of the solution.
We could just grow old and say we're done, or we could go to work and see what difference we can make. And with God's hand in it, we're finding out that we're headed in a direction that should make a huge difference in people's lives.
Tammy Scardino, Idaho on your side.
Awesome little story right there. That is, always like to kind of sprinkle around the stories and kind of give you guys a good mix for this evening. Wow. It's been really hot out. I mean, it's almost October and we're going to be getting like 103, 104 still. I don't understand why, but we're almost getting close to November, and I'm hopefully by the time November comes, it'll cool down. Well, we got Dave Muncy. He is going to give us the evening forecast right now, in case you guys are wondering how this whole week is going to shape up.
AccuWeather forecast with Dave Muncy on Fox 10 News.
Well, hi, folks. Big night last night with the lunar eclipse. Things are looking pretty good around the city today. And the temperatures are 100 degrees right now. We've got a few clouds out there. Those winds flipping around a little bit. Southwest now at 10 miles an hour. 50 degrees on the dew point, 19%. On the humidity, temperatures 98 at Deer Valley, 99 in Mesa, 101 at Fountain Hills, 100 right now in Ahwatukee. You can see that the moisture is staying north of us here. We have a little bit of cloudiness that's filtering through the state. We've seen that over the last day or so. It's been very, very sunny, but we've seen a few clouds here and there, and it has been warming up. 104 degrees our high today. The norm is 96, 101 in Scottsdale, 102 in Glendale, 102 at Luke. We have 108 for the record, and as I mentioned, 96 is your normal high temperature. Other numbers that we have: 86 at Prescott, 80 at the Grand Canyon, 102 at Gila Bend today. Look at that normal line. We are going to stay warm for a couple of days here. You can see those 105 sneaking in there, but we will get down to the seasonal norm of 93 degrees by the time this 10-day forecast is over. 104 on the high, 80 on the low. 96 and 72 would be your normal high and low. Record high 108, record low at 50 across the country. This is the big mess right here. A couple of low pressure systems. In fact, they're watching both of them for any tropical influence that they might have. They have really been causing trouble. 5 to 12 inches have been flooding through the entire area. All of this area has flood watches up at this time, and as you can see, lots of moisture flooding into that area. 80 degrees overnight. We'll see a few clouds. Sunny by tomorrow, 104 degrees. And as you can see here, we continue on with a very warm week. Midweek, we go to 105. We stay there a couple of days. There is your weekend, though. It's looking pretty good. Your Saturday and your Sunday. And of course, Sunday, the Walk for Hope to cure breast cancer at the Phoenix Zoo. We'll give you more information on that as the week progresses. Not a bad night, though. Watch your kids around water.
First on Fox.
Thank you, Dave. And Dave is going to be celebrating a big milestone this week, this Wednesday to be exact. 40 years on the air here. Truly amazing, Dave. 4 decades. Can you guys imagine being at the same job for 40 years? That is awesome. That's an awesome commitment. You gotta love that guy for putting in the work and dedication. 40 years of doing outstanding weather. Wow. Think about how many times he told us it's going to get warm, it's going to get hot. That's the way it looks like for this next week here. Wow. 40 years. You got to love that, and you always got to. So on Wednesday, be sure to tweet at him congratulations, because that is going to be an awesome milestone for him. You don't want to miss some of our newscast on Wednesday as we all celebrate his big achievement. Awesome job, Dave Muncy. 40 years. You gotta love it. We got some other news that, of course, happened today. President Obama was speaking at the GN Summit. Had a lot to say. We'll take it.
So we are here today together to strengthen and reform UN peacekeeping because our common security demands it. This is not something that we do for others. This is something that we do collectively because our collective security depends on it. As the largest financial contributor to the UN peacekeeping operations, the United States intends to continue to do its part. And today I'm issuing new presidential guidance, the first in more than 20 years, to expand our support for UN peace operations. Like the nations participating today, we'll pledge additional resources. We'll work to double the number of U.S. military officers serving in peacekeeping operations. We will offer logistical support, including our unrivaled network of air and sea lift. When there's an urgent need and we're uniquely positioned to help, we'll undertake engineering projects like building airfields and base camps for new missions. And we'll step up our efforts to help build the UN's capacity, from identifying state-of-the-art technology to offering training to protection against IEDs. And together, there's much more we need to do together. So let me briefly suggest several key areas where we can focus. First, more nations need to contribute more forces. We are joined today by countries from every region of the world, and I want to thank those who already do so much and commend those who have come here prepared to do more. At this summit, more than 50 countries, from Bangladesh to Colombia, from Finland to China, are making commitments totaling more than 30,000 new troops and police. And they're stepping up with critical contributions like medical units, helicopters, and capabilities to counter IEDs, which will help peacekeepers be able to stay safe and succeed in their missions. This all represents significant progress, and over the coming years, I believe more nations can make even more contributions. Second, we need to improve the protection of civilians. Unlike 20 years ago, today's UN peacekeepers have the clear authority to safeguard the innocent, but it is still applied unevenly. That's why the principles and best practices for civilian protection laid out in Kigali are so important. Because for innocent people, caught in the crossfire in places like South Sudan, the actions of UN peacekeepers can mean the difference between life and death. At the same time, we have to candidly acknowledge that abuse by peacekeepers has to end. I want to be very clear. The overwhelming number of peacekeepers serve with honor and decency in extraordinarily difficult situations. But we have seen some appalling cases of peacekeepers abusing civilians, including rape and sexual assault, and that is totally unacceptable. It's an affront to human decency. It undermines the core mission because it erodes trust with communities. It has a corrosive effect on global confidence in peacekeeping itself. Mr. Secretary General, we commend you for leading on this issue and insisting on accountability. And we know you cannot solve this problem alone. As leaders and as an international community, we have to insist on zero tolerance for abuse. Zero. Third, we need to reform and modernize peace operations because today's complex conflicts demand it, and that means putting in place the highest caliber, merit-based leadership teams for every single mission. It means making sure we get more women leaders into critical roles. It means planning the rules for operations in the field and not in conference rooms. Our goal should be to make every new peace operation more efficient and more effective than the last. Beyond strengthening UN peacekeeping, the United States also supports developing new and deeper partnerships between the UN and the African Union to provide reliable support for AU peace operations. And we look forward to hearing concrete proposals from our African partners to advance this work. Finally, we need to increase our support of the full range of UN diplomatic tools, including mediation, envoys, and special political missions, which help us to prevent conflicts in the first place. We cannot expect peacekeeping operations to succeed unless the parties involved are willing and committed to making peace. If we do all these things, if we provide the support and embrace the reforms that I've described today, I believe we can strengthen peace operations for decades to come. Because we know, we can be certain that in the years ahead, as conflicts arise, the call will go out to those men and women in blue helmets to restore calm and to keep the peace and to save lives, And when they go, their success and their lives will depend on whether they have the training and the forces and the capabilities and the global support they need to succeed in their mission. The decisions and the commitments we make today can help ensure that they do. I want to thank all of you for your partnership and the commitments that your nations are making here. We will hear some extraordinary commitments from a number of nations. And we are very proud that the international community has responded to this call in such a significant way. Rest assured that in this critical work, the United States will be a strong partner to all of you. Thank you very much.
And that was President Obama from earlier today. Coming up on 7:30 on this beautiful Monday, also happens to be my birthday. So thank you all for being in the chat and saying happy birthday to me. I really appreciate it. And another big story today had to do all about the red planet. Yes, because NASA had some very big news for everybody. And if you don't know what the story's about and what NASA had its big reveal today, well, I'm going to show you that story.
Revealing there's liquid on Mars. And the latest finding from the space scientists is a major shift for studying life outside of Earth. Mars was always thought to be dry and an arid planet. There'd been some evidence that there might be some ice, and that would of course mean water, but new evidence from rovers suggests that there was once maybe large masses of water throughout the planet. Analysis from orbiters showed dark streaks that appear to disappear seasonally, which NASA believes is salt water.
Our rovers are finding that there's a lot more humidity in the air than we ever imagined. As we ingest the soils, they're moist, they're hydrated, full of water.
All right, scientists think Mars had extensive water resources maybe billions of years ago, but something happened. Something. Mars suffered a major climate change and lost its surface water. So the early morning announcement by Team NASA certainly got everyone's attention.
And if you're thinking we've heard this before, seems like we have, right?
Yeah.
You're right. This time, though, it's different. Linda Williams joins us live to explain how is it different this time.
It is such a fun and exciting day, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've heard these compelling phrases all day today from NASA scientists like liquid water and modern moisture. But the most compelling question from many is, does this mean there could be or is life on Mars? We have heard NASA excited about evidence of water before on the red planet. So why is this time different?
What's exciting is that this is water in today's environment. You know, most of the discoveries about water on Mars are water in Mars' ancient history. So this is water in Mars' current, environment.
Stephen Ruff, an associate researcher at ASU's Mars Space Flight Facility, says slope pictures like these, taken by orbiter satellites, show the evidence. But what are we looking at here? Because the water is not flowing, gushing, or trickling on this desert planet.
It doesn't even look like a spring in the Grand Canyon. This would be very slow-moving, fluids, probably just under the dirt. And the dirt is getting wet in a way that makes the dirt darker.
Dark dirt may sound mundane now, but the possibilities of what lies beneath and what it could mean in the future for the red planet.
And it may serve as a resource for future astronauts, for example. And it does maybe tell us something about an environment where microbes could grow in today's environment.
And for a lot of people, that's really the biggie. Ruff says the boost that this discovery gives is pretty decent. It's the possibility that Mars is home to some form of life. The information continues to pour in from the orbiter, and other missions are underway. One is set to launch in 2020. It includes technical cameras designed by ASU. This latest mission had input from U of A. We should all be very proud because Arizona's university is really playing important roles in the exploration of the red planet. I'm Linda Williams, Fox 10 News.
First on Fox.
That is so super awesome. I love that story. And if you want to hear a little bit more from the ASU interview, I am going to now play the raw interview on that. I think is just a fantastic, and fascinating story that I want to show that to you guys now. This is the raw interview that Linda did.
Professor at ASU.
Okay.
All right.
You've been studying Mars for
decades.
Okay.
Actually.
Yes. So this is a big deal. They said it's a big deal. Tell me why it's a big deal.
So once again, NASA scientists have recognized water on the surface of Mars in some form. And what's exciting is that this is water in today's environment. Most of the discoveries about water on Mars are water in Mars' ancient history. So this is water in Mars' current, environment, which is a big deal. And so these slope features that are the source of this discovery, they were actually discovered back in 2011 with a camera from the University of Arizona. And those pictures showed features, these slope features, growing on slopes on Mars in the summer seasons. And it had been a mystery up until today, basically, or the recent discovery, that the slopes are forming because of salty water. All right, so Mars is, even in the summer months on Mars, it's so cold that water really would still freeze. So you need these salts, these briny fluids, to allow water to form and flow today in this environment. So the discovery really proves, essentially, that these slope features are formed by briny, salty water.
And that opens up all kinds of possibilities in terms of, because people say, okay, big deal, there's recent water, blah, blah, but the potential for what that could mean in terms of life-supporting environments, that kind of thing. Will you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so water in Mars environment today means that there is some kind of water cycle, that water isn't literally just bottled up or frozen in ice underneath the surface. It's coming to the surface today. It's a potential resource, but again, it's briny water. You're not just going to go up and drink from these flows, right? So it's very salty, but it really does show that even today on Mars, water is coming and going in a way that we didn't know before. So this is really clear evidence for a water cycle on Mars. Water is coming to the surface. With regards to life and this water, again, because it's so salty, it's not necessarily a great place for microbes. There are some salt-loving microbes that might tolerate this environment. But I think more than a relationship to life, it's really showing that there's water moving around on the surface, in the shallow subsurface of Mars today, and it may serve as a resource for future astronauts, for example. And it does maybe tell us something about an environment where microbes could grow in today's environment. So again, the idea of water in today's environment versus the past, and life being present today, this does give a boost to that idea that there could be life today on Mars.
Well, that's an interesting boost.
Yeah.
Let's see, how do I put this? Is there a way to tell from what rover sent back? Right? This is from the Mars rover camera.
No, this is all from orbiter.
It's from orbiter.
Satellites.
From orbiter satellites.
Yeah. So all of this information, most of this is coming from orbital identification from these satellites, right, around Mars orbit, or in Mars orbit. And so they're taking pictures and they're using spectral data, these squiggly lines, to identify what minerals are present. So it used to just be pictures, but now we've got spectra from this CRISM instrument, and the spectra are telling us what salts are there.
Can you somehow envision and explain to me and give me an analogy of what water coming down that slope actually looks like It's not Niagara Falls.
Right.
It's a trickle.
Yeah, it is a trickle.
It's
not even. It doesn't even look like a spring in the Grand Canyon. This would be very slow-moving, fluids, probably just under the dirt, and the dirt is getting wet in a way that makes the dirt darker. Everyone who's poured water on dirt knows that it gets a little darker when it gets wet, and so that's what these slope streaks look like. These slope features is they look like damp soil. Okay, so it isn't it isn't like a gush of water coming down these slopes.
Is there anything you wanted to stress that I didn't ask you?
That last point was good.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
that it's not. These aren't gushing springs coming out of the walls of the rocks there. It's just damp soil. So I think that's a key feature. But it's important because it's water today.
Water today.
Yep.
I love it. So do you think we've got it? What's important?
Yeah, I think you'd have.
We looked forward in terms of what could happen. We looked back in terms of what's new. Yeah,
that you can't, and it's not, you can't make a point that it's like this is evidence for life. It's not. It's evidence for water today, which is the big deal.
Take a couple of pictures of you.
Okay.
For some reason, I can't explain why, I'm so hivey. And I usually don't get hives, but for some reason my legs, as I'm standing here,
Can you,
started itching.
You can still look at her, but can you explain why is it important for water to be on Mars?
Because water on Mars is important because it's a resource. It's necessary for life. It's necessary for life to be there even if we don't go there. But when we do go there with humans, it's a resource for those humans. So having water on a planet is a requirement for life to be there, and it's a requirement for life that wants to go there and live.
Very, very interesting stuff. I love talking and hearing all about Mars because it's so interesting at the same time, because we're getting very close to, if they have water on there, there could be little organisms on that planet, and there could be life there that we don't even know about. So very interesting. It's just going to be a matter of time before we get to Mars, just like how we got to the moon. So very, very interesting stuff there. I do want to show you, though, one of our the top story of the day was that big accident near 43rd Avenue. Has one person in custody while 6 people are injured. So just a horrible story that happened earlier today, and we will get you that.
It all started with a traffic stop, and it quickly escalated into a hit and run. And this was an ugly scene. 6 people hurt in a 4-truck crash. This was a big crash. The driver and his passenger then took off, but it didn't take police long to catch up with them. A big part of 43rd Avenue near I-10 is closed while this investigation continues.
Kara, let me give you a closer look at what happened today. An officer pulled the suspect over along eastbound I-10 here near 59th Avenue. That's where the officer pulled him over, but he hits the gas and flees right down I-10, right to 43rd Avenue, to that spot right there. And that's where there was a 4-vehicle crash in that intersection. And as we mentioned, 6 people hurt. Both the driver and passenger took off. The passenger collapsed at the scene. Now, police found the driver hiding in a shed in that neighborhood right there just south of I-10. Let's check in with Jessica Flores. She's in that neighborhood right now where this all came to an end, at least for the driver. What's the story there, Jess?
Well, this is still a very active scene here. There's still debris everywhere along the road, and that suspect's gray truck is still behind me. Police say there's possibly drugs inside. And an innocent man caught up in this crash is now fighting for his life at the hospital. The crash, so forceful, left this white SRP truck turned over. The 4 people inside now at the hospital. 1 man is in critical condition. A total of 5 cars involved in the crash at 43rd Avenue and the I-10. And the driver responsible, according to investigators, was trying to get away from police. His gray truck was stopped moments earlier on the I-10 freeway at 59th Avenue.
The guy gave him his driver's license. And then for whatever reason, he thought he could then evade us. He took off. The officer actually didn't even chase him because he knew I have the guy's driver's license. I know who he is.
Investigators say during that initial traffic stop, the officer noticed drugs in the gray truck.
We do have indications that, yes, he is known to us and has been involved in drug transactions in the past.
Police say the suspect and a woman in the gray truck ran from the scene after the crash.
There's a male suspect who we ended up finding hiding in a residential shed in the neighborhood, and an adult female suspect who also tried to flee on foot after the collision, but I'm told she collapsed, maybe because of her injuries.
Now, both suspects recovering in the hospital as detectives comb through the truck, collecting the evidence inside. And police have not released identities of the victims or the suspects at this hour. As for this scene, 43rd Avenue at I-10 will remain closed for the next several hours. If you're coming from downtown Phoenix, you can exit 43rd Avenue, but only go northbound.
A pickup truck slams into a house in Glendale this morning, plowing almost all the way through it.
According to police, it happened because the driver was distracted looking for his cell phone. Steve Kraft joins us near 59th Avenue in Glendale with the story. I see so many drivers on their cell phones.
Glendale Fire says this pickup truck was heading southbound down 59th Avenue when it crossed the northbound lanes, went through a fence and into a house, almost all the way through the house. Cynthia Martinez lives there with her daughter, Suzette, her fiance, and his kids. Suzette was alone inside when it happened.
She just heard a big thud, and next thing you know, everything was falling at her.
Suzette did not want to go on camera, but said that she was in the back and suddenly felt a wall push in on her. She has a couple cuts and bruises, and her ankle hurts, but that's it.
Speed limit, I believe, here is 45 miles an hour, and we don't see any skid marks here, so it probably went through full speed, and for her to even survive that, I mean, that's miraculous in and of itself.
The 41-year-old man driving the truck and a woman in her 30s who was a passenger not hurt seriously either. The fire department shored up the walls so the house would not collapse as a tow truck driver extracted the Dodge pickup and hauled it away. Meanwhile, all Cynthia Martinez could do was watch.
All I know is that truck drove through my house, totally demolished it, and can't even go in to get me any clothes or anything.
That was Steve Kraft reporting. The investigation is continuing into the crash, but it's another good reminder and reason to really put your cell phone down when you're in the car. Turn it over and go hands-free.
All right, so a lot of stories there that had to deal with crashes, unfortunately. Hopefully everyone that is affected by that in those stories will turn out all right. Just can't be distracted while you are driving. I know it's very easy to do, and with all this technology now that we do have, it's getting in the way of people's driving. So very scary situations on the roadways sometimes. That's a risk we take when we get out there. I do want to take you now to an event that wrapped up this afternoon. Marco Rubio was talking in Florida at a town hall event. Take a look.
Those families that are working as hard as they've ever worked, and they used to be able to save money, and then they used to be able to break even, and now they're falling behind. They forgot or never knew what it was like for a student that went to college, borrowed money to get a degree, and now they can't find a job, but they owe thousands of dollars. They don't forgot what it's like, or maybe never went through the experience of saying, this is America, I can start a business. But depending on what industry it is, you may not be able to start a business because you can't afford the lawyers and the accountants to get through all the permits and the rules. They've forgotten what that feels like, or maybe they never knew. They're also out of touch. The world has changed. Our economy, this is a very different economy from the one I grew up in. And it's a very different economy than the one we had 5 years ago. You think about it, one of the largest hospitality companies in America is Airbnb. They don't own any hotels. One of the largest retailers in the world is Amazon. They don't own stores. One of the largest transportation companies is called Uber, and they don't own any cars. Not just is the economy different, it's changing faster than ever. So it took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users. It took Candy Crush 1 year to reach 100 million users. So the world is changing, and it's changing faster than ever. But we have programs and laws and ideas that are outdated. We have retirement programs and a VA system designed in the 1930s. We have a higher education system from the 1950s. We have anti-poverty programs that do not cure poverty, and they've been around since the 1960s. We have energy policies from the 1970s and a tax code from the 1990s. And so not only are our leaders out of touch, they're outdated as well in their ideas. This is a new economy with global competition. We now have to compete against dozens of other countries like New Zealand and South Korea. And they're reducing their regulations and they're cutting their taxes to do everything possible to be more competitive. And we're going in the opposite direction. And here's the sad truth. If we keep doing what we are doing now, we are going to be the first Americans in the proud history of this great nation that leave our children worse off than ourselves. And that's why I tell people this is not simply a choice between Republicans or Democrats. It's not a choice between conservatives and liberals alone. This election is a generational choice about our identity, about what kind of country we want to be. And it's why I chose to run for president. Because I want this to be even greater than the country that was left for me and for my generation. But to do so, we must turn the page. The time has come for both the Republican Party and the United States of America to elect a new generation of leaders with ideas relevant to the times in which we live, applying the principles that work. These principles, they still work. Limited government and free enterprise, it still works. It works better than anything else that's ever been innovated. You know how I know that? Because every other country is trying to copy us. But we have to apply those principles to the challenges of the times before us now. And that's why we support tax reform and regulatory reform and repealing Obamacare and balancing our budget and fully utilizing our energy resources. We support these things because if we do it, our economy is going to create not just millions of new jobs, but millions of the best jobs in the world will be created here in America. In fact, it's an important thing for us to remind ourselves. These Democrats, they'll do anything. Good news is I was able to find my speech on the server last night. I was afraid I had erased it. Anyway. The good news is, here's what we need important to remind. Anytime you see a politician say, when I was governor, when I was mayor, when I was whatever, we created millions of jobs, red flag of caution. Presidents don't create jobs. Outside of government anyways. Governments don't create jobs. The private sector creates jobs. What we need are government policies that make America the easiest and the best place in the world to create the best jobs of the 21st century. And that's the first thing we must do. We must be the place on this planet where it is the easiest and best place in the world to create 21st century jobs. Because those 21st century jobs, they pay more than the jobs that we've lost. Which leads us to the second thing we have to do. These new jobs will require more skills than ever. And yet we have a higher education system that's completely outdated. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Some of the best jobs of the 21st century require more than traditional high school, but less than 4 years of college. We don't teach people to do this stuff anymore. We don't teach people to fix cars and airplanes anymore. We don't teach people to fix air conditioning units. We're not producing enough welders and plumbers and pipe fitters. These are good jobs. And we don't teach people to do this anymore. And I don't understand why. A welder makes a lot more money than a Greek philosopher. Yeah. But we produce a lot of philosophy majors, and not nearly enough. So one of the people with these skills. So the first thing we have to do is we must restore vocational education and career education. And we need to do that while they're still 16 and 17 years old. So when they graduate high school, they're ready to go work. The second thing we have to do is we need competition and alternatives to traditional college. We're still going to have traditional college. We're still going to have traditional 4-year degrees. After all, how about we have college football, right? We have to have traditional. But for some people, they can't do it. So think, for example, of a single mother. She's a receptionist at a law firm, raising 2 kids on her own, makes $15 an hour. You know the only way she's ever going to get a raise, a real big raise, is if she can become a paralegal. or a dental hygienist or an additional skill, but she can't because she has to work full-time and raise a family. But imagine if we had a system that said, what matters is what you've learned, not where you learned it. And we're going to give you credit for the skills you acquired in the military. We're going to give you credit for work experience and life experience. We're going to allow you to learn things online on flexible schedules. If we open that up, suddenly millions of people would have the skills for these better paying jobs. And as I said, we're still going to have traditional four-year degrees, but here's what we can't do anymore. We can't keep graduating people with a mountain of student loans and a degree that doesn't lead to a job. It is crippling. Look, I myself owned over $100,000 in student loans. And I wasn't able to pay it off until I wrote a book. It's called An American Son. It's now available on paperback. And you liked it, thank you. The paperback's actually paying for my kids' student loans. But anyway, my point is that we can't continue to graduate people with these degrees that do not lead to jobs, but they owe thousands of dollars for it. That's why I think before you take out a student loan, colleges and universities should have to tell you how much people make when they graduate with that degree from that school. That's why we need alternatives to student loans. Like what I've talked about is called the Student Investment Plan. It allows, for example, graduate students to go to a private investment group that will invest in you the way you invest in a company, by paying your tuition. And if you're successful, they make their money back with a profit. And if they decide to go live in a tent and find themselves, they made a bad investment. But it's a lot better than a student loan and what it means around the neck of thousands and thousands of young Americans. Because you know what a student loan means? When you can't pay it, it ruins your credit, which means you can't buy a house, you can't start a business, you can't move ahead. These are important things. If we can do these two things, if we can provide our policies that we need in taxes and regulations, in the national debt, in energy policy, by repealing and replacing Obamacare, if we can do these things and combine them with a revolution of modernizing higher education, we will create the best jobs in the world, and our people will have the skills for the best jobs in the world, and we will have an American economic renaissance. But that's the private sector's job. Our job in government is just to create an environment where they can achieve that. And then the private sector will take care of the rest. Here's the one thing only the federal government can do. Keep us safe. As we stand here in this hall tonight, we're reminded of that. We're reminded not just of the role America has played in the safety and security of the world, but in our own safety and security. What would the world have looked like if the greatest generation had not defeated Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan? What would the world have looked like if a consistent and dedicated America had not confronted Soviet expansionism? What would the world have looked like? What kind of planet would we have inherited? What kind of life would we be leading now? Impossible to say other than this. It would be a lot worse than what you and I grew up with, and a lot worse than the country we have today and the world that we grew up in. The truth is the world still needs a strong America because there's nothing to replace it. And yet, in addition to that, the world is more dangerous than it's been in a very long time. You literally have a lunatic. There's no other way to describe him. A lunatic in North Korea. The problem is he has dozens of nuclear weapons and a long-range missile that can reach the United States. The Chinese are rapidly expanding their military. They're taking over the South China Sea, which is the most important shipping lane in the world, while they hack into our computers and steal our government secrets, the secrets of our companies, and the private information of Americans. A gangster in Moscow, who, by the way, on 60 Minutes last night, they asked him, they said, Marco Rubio says you're a gangster. He says, how can I be a gangster? I was in the KGB. And I didn't even pay him to say that. He said that. But they're threatening the unity of Europe. For the first time in 30 years, they're deploying military assets overseas in Syria to challenge American leadership. You've got radical jihadists in dozens of countries across multiple continents. And they're even using social media to recruit Americans to attack us here at home. And last but not least, you have this incredibly horrifying deal with Iran that guarantees they're going to have nuclear weapons. Almost guarantees they're going to have nuclear weapons. The largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world is going to receive hundreds of billions of dollars of sanctions relief. And they're not going to use that money to build hospitals, roads, and bridges. They're going to use it to build long-range rockets. They're going to use it to sponsor terrorism. And eventually they're going to use it to build nuclear weapons. The world is a very dangerous place. And in the face of that danger, what is the current administration doing? They're cutting defense spending. And defense spending is not the reason why we have a national debt. It is not the cause of our national debt. But these cuts in defense will be the reason why this country cannot protect itself. Our Navy and our Air Force are scheduled to be older and smaller than they have ever been, certainly in the modern history of this country. Our Army is reducing another 40,000 positions in what is already a historically small force. In the face of all of this danger, we are reducing our military capabilities. We know for a fact, history proves, the things on this wall prove, that the world is a safer and better place when America is the strongest military force on this planet. And we need a president that brings that. And we need a foreign policy of moral clarity. What does moral clarity mean? Here's what it means. It means this. Your allies know they can trust you, and your adversaries know not to test you. That makes all the sense in the world. The Japanese, the South Koreans, our NATO allies, they know how popular Israel is in America. They know how much support Israel has in the Congress. And you know what they say to themselves? If they're willing to do that to Israel, imagine what they'll do to us one day. And as a result, Vladimir Putin and others take advantage of that doubt. He goes into the Middle East and tells countries there, you can't rely on America anymore. Certainly not as long as Barack Obama is president. You should rely on us. And they're susceptible to that argument because of what this president is doing. We need a president that doesn't just restore our national security capabilities, but also restores our national security commitments. And I promise you this, if I am ever blessed with the opportunity to be president of the United States, hopefully in about a year, not only will we have the strongest military in the world, our allies will trust us, and our adversaries will respect us. We may not be able to fix at some point. We can fix every single one of these things. And by the way, I would argue this too. What we face is no different than those who came before us. There's never been a time in America where we didn't face challenges. This nation was founded in the midst of extraordinary challenges. Its very existence, highly improbable. And then this nation survived a civil war, which literally means the country was divided, violently. And then we survived a Great Depression and 2 world wars and a Cold War. We even survived disco music in the 1970s. These were difficult times. I try that joke sometimes at work. Sometimes people are like, what do you mean? I like disco. Are the Bee Gees disco? All right. Saturday Night Fever? See, I'm not that young. We survived great challenges before. Ours is not the story of a nation that never had challenges. Ours is the story of a nation that in each generation confronted its challenges and embraced its opportunities. Think about the Industrial Revolution for a moment. I like to use this as an example. The Industrial Revolution was incredibly disruptive. I mean, it literally took industries that had existed for hundreds of years and wiped them out. Imagine if you used to build horse-drawn carriages, and then this Henry Ford guy builds a car. You're out of business. It was very disruptive. The Industrial Revolution took millions of people out of farms and put them in. And in the end, that's why I chose to enter public service to begin with. 5 years ago, I came here. I was a candidate for the Senate. No one thought I could win. Well, 5 people thought I could win, but they all lived in my home. And 4 of them were under the age of 10, at least at the beginning. I remember going to Washington, and the entire Republican leadership, I mean the entire Republican leadership in the Senate and the party, said not only are we not going to help you, we are going to help your opponent. Who was this guy? What was his name? Charlie. I think he was governor. And they said, we're going to help him instead. And in some ways, a similar thing's happening now. When I decided to run for president, oh, you need to wait your turn. I didn't know there was a line. Century is upon us, and the decisions we make over the next 4 years will determine what kind of country we will be over the next 100. That's what's at stake. And I've always been deeply committed to certainly are. But both of my parents were born in another country. They were born on the island of Cuba. And they were like most of the people that have ever been born. We need to remember this, because those of us who were born and raised in this country, it's easy to take this for granted. But most of the people that have ever lived have lived in societies that say to you, you can only be what your parents are. Doesn't matter how talented you are or how hard you work, all you can be is whatever your parents did. So if your parents were rich and famous and powerful, that was good news. But for everybody else, you were stuck. Unless you got really, really lucky. No matter how hard you worked or how much you tried, you really couldn't outwork the circumstances of your birth. Well, my parents were both born into poor families on the island of Cuba. And they came to America because it was the one place on earth where people like them could have a chance. And in America, they never became rich or famous, but they were successful. They owned a home in a safe neighborhood. They retired with dignity and security. And they were able to leave all four of their children better off than themselves. It reminds us that that's what makes us special. My father in particular is someone that I always think about, especially on days like today and in events like this when I talk about it. When he was 4 days shy of his 9th birthday, his mother died. Now, they used to have this business. It was kind of a catering business, but it sounds really fancy. She used to cook, and my grandfather used to deliver meals to cigar factories. And then the cigar factory closed, and she died. And my father, at 9 years of age, had to quit going to school and go work. 9 years of age. He would never go back to school. And he would work for the next 70 years of his life. Now, when he was a young boy and a young man, he had big dreams, because young people have dreams. And his dreams were to be a successful businessman, to do all sorts of things. They became impossible. When my parents came to America in 1956, they found a new dream. Their new dream became this. They wanted to make sure that what happened to them never happened to us. That all the doors that had closed for them never closed for us. The very purpose of their life became to give us the chance to do all the things that they never could. So in this country, my parents just had jobs. My mother she worked at a factory building aluminum chairs. She was a cashier on Miami Beach. She was a maid at a hotel in Las Vegas, a stock clerk at Kmart. My father didn't move around as much. He was just basically a bartender at hotels. He worked banquets. And he worked well into his 70s. On nights, on weekends, on holidays, on days I'm sure he didn't want to work. He stood behind a small portable bar in the back of a banquet room in a hotel. So one day his children could have the chance to be anything they wanted. And the journey from behind that bar to where I stand here before you today as a candidate for the highest office in the land, to me, that journey is what makes America different. Every country has rich people. Every country has famous people. Even the poorest country on earth has rich people. You know what makes us different? Is here are people that will never be rich or famous still achieve happiness through hard work and perseverance. That's what separates us from the rest of the world. And it's also what unites us as a nation. The common thread among our people is this. We are all but a generation or two removed from someone who did that for us. Every single person in this room is a generation or two removed from someone who made your future the purpose of their lives. And you remember it. You remember your parents that worked 2 jobs. You remember the sacrifices your grandparents or your parents made for you. Maybe you remember the sacrifices you made for your children. But in this nation, we are all the beneficiaries of someone who did that for us. And now we are called to make sure that that's still possible. We want more people than ever to be able to achieve that dream. And if we can achieve that, this nation will be greater than it's ever been. If we do what needs to be done, not only will the American dream be possible, it'll be possible for more people than ever before. But if we fail, then that dream will die. Then people will get stuck in the circumstances of their birth. And we'll still be a big, powerful country, but we will no longer be special. And so I run for the presidency for one simple reason. I still want this to be a place where people can do for their children what my parents did for me, and what your parents and your grandparents did for you. In fact, I want more people than ever to be able to do it, and that is the exciting opportunity of this moment. For before us now is the chance to be the authors of the greatest chapter in the amazing story of America. But the time to act is now. We can't wait any longer. In a few months, we will begin the process of selecting delegates to the Republican convention, in essence, selecting the nominee. And it will be the beginning of the end of 8 long years of Barack Obama and his failed leadership. presidency. It must be the beginning of something new. The beginning of a new era. The beginning of a new chapter in the story of this country. So that when the history of this time is written, here's what it should say. It should say that this generation of Americans lived in a time of extraordinary challenges and uncertainties. But like all the generations before them, they rose up to the task. They confronted the challenges, and they embraced the opportunities. They applied the principles of our founding to the challenges of our time. And because we did, our children grew up to be the freest and most prosperous Americans ever. Because we did, America was greater than it had ever been. Because we did, the American dream survived for at least one generation more. And because we did, together, we authored a new American century. Thank you for having me. God bless you. Thank you.
Donald Trump has a tax plan that he says will make America great again. He unveiled it Monday morning in New York City, and it includes major tax breaks for almost all citizens, specifically those in the middle and lower income classes.
It'll simplify the tax code. It'll grow the American economy at a level that it hasn't seen for decades.
Corporations who bring money back to the U.S. will also be rewarded in Trump's plan. Riding a wave of popularity, Ben Carson spoke to a large group in Virginia Sunday night.
What are we going to do about the open borders? Close them.
According to a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll, Ben Carson is only 1 point behind Trump, but support for Jeb Bush continues to slide. The former frontrunner has lost 2/3 of his national support since June.
The problem is everyone's waiting for the real Jeb Bush to show up, and I think this is the real Jeb Bush. That's the problem. In a year when Republicans are so unhappy with the Republican establishment, Wall Street and Washington, Jeb Bush is all three.
But Bush doesn't seem to be fazed.
Look, it is a marathon, and we just started advertising. I'm confident we get good response. We got a great ground game in these early states. I'm confident I can win New Hampshire for sure. I'm going to work really hard at it.
On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton is getting some help from her husband on the campaign trail. Former President Bill Clinton is said to be ready for a more active role as his wife's lead looks increasingly uncertain. In Washington, Kristen Fisher, Fox News.
First on Fox, it all started with a traffic stop and it quickly escalated into a hit and run. And this was an ugly scene. 6 people hurt in a...
Whenever I close my eyes, I seem to have that image of him coming into my room.
A clatter at the window, a man breaking into Bree Lasley's bedroom.
He whispered and said, "I'm going to kill you."
48-year-old Robert Berger started attacking her.
He put his left arm over my mouth and started punching me in the stomach. And he said, "You cooperate with me or I'm going downstairs to get your little sister."
Bree struggling to get Berger off her, screaming for help. Her sister Kaylee rushed into Bree's room. Berger kicked Kaylee down the stairs, her head crashing through the wall.
I could see him strangling Kaylee up against the wall. And that's when I knew that I had to act.
Bree tackled him while Kaylee hit him with a metal rack.
I heard her say a couple times, "Kaylee, he has a knife, he has a knife."
Kaylee rushed for help as Berger pinned Bree down.
As I'm running up the stairs, I hear her saying, "He's stabbing me, he's stabbing me."
Piercing her in the leg and multiple times in the stomach. Drenched in blood, Berger told Bree he was going to get her sister.
I said, "No, you're not." And I remember I saw his shadow in his right arm with a knife. And I remember I pulled him down, and I was just holding his arms, and I said, "What are you doing?"
Berger threw Bree on the ground.
He was kneeling on top of me, and he was kneeling on both of my arms, and he pulled his knife up, and he told me that he was going to kill me.
Then she saw someone coming down the stairs.
And at first I thought it was his friend and that he might have killed Kaylee. And I was so scared, and I said, "You can kill me, just please don't kill my sister."
With the knife up against her neck.
And then that's when I saw the officer. And he was our angel. And I looked at the officer in his eyes, and he was so professional and he was so calm. And I just said, "Officer, he's going to kill me."
Bree said the officer told the man to drop the knife several times.
And he didn't. I felt the suspect flex as if he was going to cut me. And that's when the officer took his life and saved him.
Wow, what a very, very emotional story there. Wow. Well, it's coming up on 8:15, and that is time to talk about some football that happened yesterday. How happy are you guys about the Arizona Cardinals 3-0 to start the season after they just dismantled the 49ers? I mean, it was a total... I mean, our offense just put on the show of the century pretty much, and the defense, 2 pick sixes. Are you guys kidding me? I mean, it's becoming just an awesome thing in here in the Valley. Now, the 2 college teams, ASU and Arizona, that's a whole different story, but I want to see how you guys enjoyed the Cardinals game if you did watch it, and let me know, do you guys think it could be a Super Bowl appearance for the Cardinals this year? I want to know. So yes, Jared says slaughtered. Yeah, it was just, I mean, it wasn't even fair pretty much. It was a total slaughter. It was a total dismantling of a team that they come into Arizona and we just whip them. I do want to show you the rest of their schedule, just in case you guys don't know about it. Let me bring that up here. Okay, and as you can see, here's what the first half looks like. We got the Rams next. That's at home. That's another win. The Rams' defense is good, but I think their offense is still a little bit shaky, where we can totally win that as well. Then we go to Detroit. Could be... I don't know. What do you guys think about Detroit? I want to hear that in the chat. And then, I was thinking October 18th, that Pittsburgh game, I saw earlier in the season, I was like, man, that's going to be a matchup. But now with Big Ben gone, he's going to be out for, I believe, 4 weeks. I think we have that game, too, in Pittsburgh. Ravens have not won yet. They started the season 0-3. Oh, Jared says someone is getting hurt. Please don't say it's going to be Palmer, because if Palmer goes out, we all know what happened last year, right? November 1st, we go to Cleveland Browns. There's the game that everyone's thinking. November 15th, if we beat Seattle, which we very well can, at Seattle, I think that puts us in just amazing shape and just really the icing on the cake, I think, for the season then. And then those final 3 games of the season, I think that's going to be a little rough one, though. Obviously, Green Bay is just a top-tier team, as the Cardinals are. But I believe those Packers will win that game. And then Seahawks will close out the year January 3rd, and then hopefully, guys, playoffs right after that. I do believe that will be in store, but man, what a great game on Sunday for our Cardinals. The offense is just on all cylinders. We are poised to do an amazing season. We just remember we need to have everybody healthy. That's the key to the season. That's the key for a lot of teams, but especially ours. We really need to protect Palmer in that pocket. And it was just yesterday, though, that they got the first sack on Palmer. So our our offensive line has been doing a good part on that. Yeah, Frankie says, how do you beat Aaron Rodgers? It's really unlikely, I know. And if you see what he's doing on Monday Night Football right now, he's just putting on a show there in Green Bay. Jarrett thinks Cardinals will not win in Seattle. They are very, I think he wanted to say they are very hard to dominate at home. I think we can do it. We did it before. We'll do it again. How about that confidence? You got to appreciate something like that, though. I mean, I'm coming from Chicago, and I'm talking like that. I just saw my Bears just get blown out in Seattle, 26-0. They didn't even put up a point. That's nonsense right there. And then the two Arizona teams for college, not doing well. They both lost. And they both lost at home. Frankie says we can pull off that upset. Yeah, we could beat Seattle. Definitely. Okay. That was some good Cardinals talk, everybody. Really got to love going up 3-0 on the season already, on this very young season, might I add. We still got a lot of work to do, but if we just keep positive and keep our boys healthy, I don't know, we could be playing in San Francisco come February. Let's do it. Jared says Russell Wilson is a beast at home. But would he be a beast against our defense? That's the key. That's the key we all got to look at, guys. All right, I do want to now switch gears. Over the weekend, I mean, last week there was so much Pope talk we had, didn't we? We just had so much Pope action going on that President Obama met with a China leader on Friday, and we never got to it. So if you're interested, here we go.
And intellectual property. President Xi discussed his commitment to accelerate market reforms, avoid devaluing China's currency, and have China play a greater role in upholding the rules-based system that underpins the global economy, all of which are steps we very much support. I raised once again our very serious concerns about growing cyber threats to American companies and American citizens. I indicated that it has to stop. The United States government does not engage in cyber economic espionage for commercial gain. And today, I can announce that our two countries have reached a common understanding on the way forward. We've agreed that neither the U.S. or the Chinese government will conduct or knowingly support cyber-enabled theft of intellectual property, including trade secrets or other confidential business information for commercial advantage. In addition, we'll work together and with other nations to promote international rules of the road for appropriate conduct in cyberspace. So this is progress, but I have to insist that our work is not yet done. I believe we can expand our cooperation in this area, even as the United States will continue to use all of the tools at our disposal to protect American companies, citizens, and interests. Second, I'm pleased that we're building on last year's climate commitments. Last month, I issued our Clean Power Plan to help reduce America's carbon emissions. Today, I want to commend China for announcing that it will begin a national market-based cap-and-trade system to limit emissions from some of its largest sectors. Last year, I announced our pledge of $3 billion to the Green Climate Fund to help developing nations deal with climate change. Today, I welcome China's major commitment of climate finance for the most vulnerable countries as well. Our two countries are also putting forward our common vision for the ambitious climate change agreements that we seek in Paris. When the world's two largest economies, energy consumers, and carbon emitters come together like this, then there's no reason for other countries, whether developed or developing, to not do so as well. And so this is another major step towards the global agreement the world needs to reach in 2 months' time. Third, with respect to security in the Asia-Pacific, we agreed to new channels of communication to reduce the risks of miscalculations between our militaries. The United States and China have reaffirmed our commitment to the complete and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in a peaceful manner. We demand the full implementation of all relevant UN Security Council resolutions, and we will not accept North Korea as a nuclear weapons state. We did have candid discussions on the East and South China Seas, and I reiterated the right of all countries to freedom of navigation and overflight and to unimpeded commerce. As such, I indicated that the United States will continue to sail, fly, and operate anywhere that international law allows. I conveyed to President Xi our significant concerns over land reclamation, construction, and the militarization of disputed areas, which makes it harder for countries in the region to resolve disagreements peacefully. And I encouraged a resolution between claimants in these areas. We are not a claimant. We just want to make sure that the rules of the road are upheld. I reiterated my strong commitment as well to our One China policy based on the 3 joint communiques and the Taiwan Relations Act. Fourth, we've agreed to do more to promote international security. At the United Nations in the coming days, the U.S. and China will bring countries together to promote development in Afghanistan, and will work with our many partners to strengthen international peacekeeping. We agree that all parties, including Iran, need to fully implement the nuclear deal and that UN Security Council resolutions need to be fully enforced. For the first time, the U.S. and China will also formally partner to promote global development. Building on our efforts against Ebola, we'll work to strengthen global health security. We'll expand our joint efforts on humanitarian assistance, disaster response, agricultural development, and food security. And given China's success in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, which is one of the most remarkable achievements in human history, we will help rally the world this weekend around new development goals, including our goal to end extreme poverty. Fifth, we had a frank discussion about human rights, as we have in the past, and I again affirmed America's unwavering support for the human rights and fundamental freedoms of all people, including freedom of assembly and expression, freedom of the press, and freedom of religion. And I expressed in candid terms our strong view that preventing journalists, lawyers, NGOs, and civil society groups from operating freely or closing churches and denying ethnic minorities equal treatment are all problematic in our view and actually prevent China and its people from realizing its full potential. Obviously, we recognize that there are real differences there, and President Xi shared his views in terms of how he can move forward in a step-by-step way that preserves Chinese unity. So we expect that we're going to continue to consult in these areas. Even as we recognize Tibet as part of the People's Republic of China, we continue to encourage Chinese authorities to preserve the religious and cultural identity of the Tibetan people and to engage the Dalai Lama or his representatives. Finally, we're taking more steps to expand the connections between our 2 peoples. We launch a new initiative to boost tourism between our countries in the coming months. And just as children across China learn English, we're starting a new initiative called 1 Million Strong to encourage 1 million American students to learn Mandarin Chinese over the next 5 years. Vice President Biden pointed out that 2 of his children are already on track, 2 of his grandchildren, actually. After all, if our countries are going to do more together around the world, then speaking each other's language, truly understanding each other is a good place to start. So overall, we've had an extremely productive meeting. The particular work that has been done by our teams shows the extraordinary progress that we can make when we're working together. The candid conversations between President Xi and myself about areas of disagreement help us to understand each other better, to avoid misunderstandings or miscalculations, and pave the way potentially for further progress in those areas. And President Xi, I want to thank you again for expanding your commitment to cooperation between our nations. I believe that it's another reminder that as we work to narrow our differences, we can continue to advance our mutual interests for the benefit not only of our 2 peoples, but for the benefit of the world. Thank you very much.
President Obama,
各位记者朋友，
dear friends from the press,
女士们、先生们、朋友
ladies
们
and，
大家
gentlemen,
上午
dear
好。
friends, good morning.
很高兴同
It's a
奥巴
great
马
pleasure
总
for
统
me
一
to
起
meet with all of
同
you
大家见面。
together with President
首先，我要
Obama.
再一次
Let
感
me
谢奥巴马
begin by thanking
和美国政府
again President Obama and the U.S. government for the gracious hospitality and thoughtful arrangements and warm reception accorded to me and the Chinese delegation. I also want to thank the American people for the warm welcome. Yesterday and today, President Obama and I have had in-depth discussions on our respective domestic and foreign policies, important topics in bilateral relations, international and regional situation. Our meetings are constructive and productive, and we have reached extensive and important consensus. During the discussions, President Obama shared with me the domestic agenda and foreign policy priorities that he has been working on, and I congratulated him on the progress that he has made in those areas. I appreciate President Obama's reaffirmation to me that the United States welcomes the rise of a peaceful, stable, and prosperous China. It supports China to play a bigger role in the international arena, and the United States supports China's reform and opening up. I indicated to President Obama that China is making all-round efforts to deepen comprehensive reform, to build law-based governance, to enforce strict party discipline, so as to achieve the grand goal of building a society of initial prosperity in all respects. The reform and opening up of China will not stop. China is firmly committed to the path of peaceful development. It is committed to growing friendship and cooperative relations with all countries in the world. To work with the United States to build the new model of major country relationship without conflict, without confrontation, with mutual respect and win-win cooperation is a priority in China's foreign policy. We have spoken highly of the important progress made in China-U.S. relations since the Sunnyland Summit in 2013, and we have agreed to follow the consensus, expand the practical cooperation in various areas at the bilateral, regional, and global level, and manage differences and sensitive issues in a constructive manner, and to advance the new model of major country relationship between China and the United States. We have agreed to deepen the practical cooperation in various areas at the bilateral scope. This includes, we have agreed to vigorously push forward the bilateral investment treaty negotiation, speed up the pace of the work so as to achieve a high standard and balanced agreement. We will expand mutually beneficial cooperation in energy, environmental protection, science and technology, aviation, infrastructure, agriculture, health, and other areas. The two governments and relevant agencies have signed many cooperation agreements, and our businesses have signed a series of commercial contracts. China and the United States are highly complementary economically, and there is huge potential for further cooperation. For the United States to recognize China's market economy status and ease export control on civilian high-tech items, it will help expand the mutually beneficial cooperation between the two countries. We have also had in-depth discussion on the current international economic and financial situation. We have agreed to step up macroeconomic policy coordination and jointly promote global economic growth and financial stability. To this end, we have established the mechanism on regular phone conversation on economic affairs between China and the United States, which will be led by Vice Premier Wang Yang of China and Secretary of Treasury Jacob Lew. They will stay in close communication on respective and global major economic issues. We will also step up cooperation within G20, the World Bank, IMF, and other multilateral mechanisms. I appreciate the U.S. supporting including the RMB into the IMF special drawing rights when certain standards of the IMF are met. And I also appreciate the U.S. commitment to implement the IMF quota and governance structure reform plan adopted at the G20 summit in 2010 at an early date. We have fully affirmed the new progress made in the confidence-building mechanisms between the two militaries. We have agreed to step up exchanges and policy dialogues between the two militaries at all levels, hold more joint exercises and training. We believe that terrorism is the common enemy of mankind, and we have agreed to step up multilateral and bilateral counterterrorism cooperation. We have decided to increase communication and cooperation on counter-piracy, humanitarian assistance, and disaster reduction and international peacekeeping operation, and also anti-cooperation, law enforcement cooperation to jointly fight against all kinds of transnational corruption crimes. We have in-depth discussion on the situation of the Asia-Pacific, and we believe that China and the United States have extensive common interests in this region, and we should continue to deepen dialogue and cooperation on regional affairs and work together to promote active interactions and inclusive cooperation in the Asia-Pacific, and work with countries in the Asia-Pacific to promote peace, stability, and prosperity in this region. China is committed to the path of peaceful development and a neighboring foreign policy characterized by good neighborliness and partnership with our neighbors. Islands in the South China Sea since ancient times are China's territory. We have the right to uphold our own territorial sovereignty and lawful and legitimate maritime rights and interests. We are committed to maintaining peace and stability in the South China Sea, managing differences and disputes through dialogue, and addressing disputes through negotiation, consultation, and peaceful manner, and exploring ways to achieve mutual benefit through cooperation. We are committed to respecting and upholding the freedom of navigation and overflight that countries enjoy according to international law. Relevant construction activities that China are undertaking in the islands of South Nansha Islands do not target or impact any country, and China does not intend to pursue militarization. China and the United States have a lot of common interests. On the issue of South China Sea, we both support peace and stability of the South China Sea. The countries directly involved should address their disputes through negotiation, consultation, and in peaceful means. And we support freedom of navigation and overflight of countries according to international law, and the management of differences through dialogue and full and effective implementation of DOC, and an early conclusion of the consultation on COC based on consensus building. We have agreed to maintain constructive communication on relevant issues. China and the United States are two major cyber countries, and we should strengthen dialogue and cooperation. Confrontation and friction are not the right choice for both sides. During my visit, the competent authorities of both countries have reached important consensus on joint fight against cyber crimes. Both sides agreed to step up crime cases, investigation assistance, and information sharing, and both governments would not engage in or knowingly support online theft of intellectual properties, and we will explore the formulation of appropriate state behavior norms of the cyberspace, and we will establish a high-level joint dialogue mechanism on the fight against cyber crimes and related issues, and to establish hotline links. Democracy and human rights are the common pursuit of mankind. At the same time, we must recognize that countries have different historical processes and realities, that we need to respect people of all countries' rights to choose their own development path independently. The Chinese people are seeking to realize the great renewal of the Chinese nation, which is the Chinese dream. This process, in essence, is a process to achieve social equity and justice and advancing human rights. China stands ready to, in the spirit of equality and mutual respect, conduct human rights dialogue with the United States, expand consensus, reduce differences, learn from each other, and progress together. We have decided to continue to work together to tackle global challenges and provide more public goods for the international community. We again issued a joint announcement on climate change. We have agreed to expand bilateral practical cooperation, strengthen coordination in multilateral negotiation, and work together to push the Paris Climate Change Conference to produce important progress. We have signed China-U.S. Development Cooperation MOU, and we have agreed to expand trilateral cooperation in Asia, Africa, and other regions in terms of food security, public health system establishment, emergency response, and disaster reduction. And we will maintain communication and coordination in implementing the post-2015 development agenda, promote a more equitable and balanced global development partnership, and help developing countries to achieve common development. We have agreed to firmly uphold the international nuclear non-proliferation regime. President Obama and I welcome the comprehensive joint plan of action reached by relevant parties regarding the Iranian nuclear issue. We reaffirm that all relevant parties should undertake to implement the agreement fully and work together to implement all relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. We reaffirm our commitment to realize the complete and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula in peaceful way. And we oppose any action that might cause tension in the Korean Peninsula or violate UN Security Council resolution. We believe that the September the 19th joint statement of the six-party talks and relevant UN Security Council resolutions should be implemented in full. And all relevant parties should work together to firmly advance the denuclearization process of the Korean Peninsula and maintain peace and stability, so as to achieve enduring peace and stability in Northeast Asia. The friendship between the two peoples is the most reliable foundation for long-term and stable development of China-U.S. relations. And we should endeavor to solidify this important foundation. We have decided to make 2016 a year of tourism for China and the United States. In the next 3 years, we will fund a total of 50,000 students to study in each other's countries. We also welcome the United States' decision to extend the 100,000-strong initiative from universities to elementary and secondary schools, and by 2020, 1 million American students will learn Mandarin. The door of friendship of China will continue to be open to the American people. I also hope that the Chinese people could come to the United States for holidays or visits more easily and conveniently. Mr. President, with 36 years of development, the interests of China and the United States are deeply interconnected, and we have greater responsibilities for world peace and human progress. There are broader areas that the two sides should and can work together. The Chinese side stands ready to work with the United States to uphold a spirit of perseverance and advance bilateral relations, to seek further progress to the better benefits of the Chinese and American people and the people in the world. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a few questions. We're going to start with Margaret Taliff of Bloomberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Obama and President Xi, I'd like to talk to you about cyber. If I am an American business and I'm being hacked by Chinese pirates who are trying to steal my intellectual property, what firm assurances can you give us today that things are going to get better, and when? President Obama, are you satisfied enough about the steps that China is taking to hold off on imposing any new sanctions to this end, or what do you still need to see? And President Xi, could we expect prosecutions of Chinese people and organizations who have hacked American businesses? And if the U.S. did sanction anyone in China, would you respond with sanctions? Also, everyone will kill me if I don't ask. What is your reaction to House Speaker John Boehner's decision to resign? Will this make life better or worse for you? Are you concerned it will make it more difficult to avoid a government shutdown or raise the debt limit? And do you think Boehner could just waive the rules and get immigration reform through before he leaves? Thank you.
I'll take them in order. With respect to cyber, this has been a serious discussion between myself and President Xi since we first met in Sunnyland. And the good news from my perspective is that in the lead up to and then finalized during our meetings here today, we have, I think, made significant progress in agreeing to how our law enforcement and investigators are going to work together, how we're going to exchange information, how we are going to go after individuals or entities who are engaging in cyber crimes or cyber attacks. And we have jointly affirmed the principle that governments don't engage in cyber espionage for commercial gain against companies. That all I consider to be progress. What I've said to President Xi and what I'd say to the American people is the question now is, are words followed by actions? And we will be watching carefully to make an assessment as to whether progress has been made in this area. With respect to the various tools that we have to go after those who are attacking our companies or trying to extract trade secrets or data, we have traditional law enforcement tools, but as I indicated a while back through executive action, I've also instituted the ability to impose sanctions on individuals or entities where we have proof that they've gone after U.S. companies or U.S. persons. And we did not, at our level, have specific discussions of specific cases, but I did indicate to President Xi that we will apply those and whatever other tools we have in our toolkit to go after cyber criminals, either retrospectively or prospectively. Those are tools generally that are not directed at governments. They are directed at entities or individuals that we can identify. And they're not unique to China. Those are tools that we're going to be using for cyber criminals around the world. And President Xi, during these discussions, indicated to me that with 1.3 billion people, he can't guarantee the behavior of every single person on Chinese soil, which I completely understand. I can't guarantee the actions of every single American. What I can guarantee, though, and what I'm hoping President Xi will show me, is that we are not sponsoring these activities, and that when it comes to our attention that non-governmental entities or individuals are engaging in this stuff, that we take it seriously and we're cooperating to enforce the law. Last point I'll make on the cyber issue, because this is a global problem, and because unlike some of the other areas of international cooperation, the rules in this area are not well developed. I think it's going to be very important for the United States and China working with other nations and the United Nations and other and the private sector to start developing an architecture to govern behavior in cyberspace that is enforceable and clear. It doesn't mean that we're going to prevent every cybercrime, but it does start to serve as a template whereby countries know what the rules are, they're held accountable, and we're able to jointly go after non-state actors in this area. On John Boehner, I just heard the news as I was coming out of the meeting here. So it took me by surprise, and I took the time prior to this press conference to call John directly and talk to him. You know, John Boehner's a good man. He is a patriot. He cares deeply about the House, an institution in which he's served for a long time. He cares about his constituents, and he cares about America. You know, we have obviously had a lot of disagreements, and politically we're at different ends of the spectrum. But I will tell you, he has always conducted himself with courtesy and civility with me. He has kept his word when he made a commitment. He is somebody who has been gracious, and I think maybe most importantly, he's somebody who understands that in government, in governance, you don't get 100% of what you want, but you have to work with people who you disagree with, sometimes strongly, in order to do the people's business. I'm not going to prejudge who the next speaker will be. That's something that will have to be worked through in the House. And I will certainly reach out immediately to whoever who is the new speaker to see what his or her ideas are and how we can make progress in the important issues that America faces. The one thing I will say is that my hope is there's a recognition on the part of the next speaker, something I think John understood, even though at times it was challenging to bring his caucus along, that we can have significant differences on issues, but that doesn't mean you shut down the government. That doesn't mean you risk the full faith and credit of the United States. You don't invite potential financial crises. You build roads and pass transportation and intellectual.
All right, and that was from Friday afternoon at the White House. We didn't get to show that to you on Friday, well, because there was so much Pope coverage. And yesterday, if you were trying to watch our live stream in the afternoon, it just didn't work out. We had a software problem, a little technical problem, but we weren't able to stream that for you, so we do apologize. But the Pope was able, he did make it out of Philadelphia just around about 4:30 our time, Arizona time, back to the Vatican on over a 6-day trip. Truly, truly remarkable. We had a great time covering it, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching those live stream events as we tried to really get every event that he was at and give you guys some insight as we rolled on with the week there. So that was very interesting, to say the least. Coming up on almost 9 o'clock. That means at 9 o'clock we're gonna end the stream here on this Monday. Hope everyone is having a great evening. I do want to show you this one story. I thought this was really awesome and cute. A Valley preschoolers test some new toys for the holidays. Take a look. I hit it. There we go.
More than that?
Well, we'll have to look into it. All right, some Valley preschoolers, they had a very tough job ahead of them today. Test out the latest and greatest toys.
Oh, fun.
The Goddard School in Scottsdale is one of 50 schools around the country taking part in this.
The test will help create a top 10 list in time for the holiday season, and Ty Brennan explains what it's all about.
These preschoolers at the Goddard School in Scottsdale have a very important job, becoming professional toy testers for the week.
Painting.
Painting? What are you painting there?
A star.
A star. And do you like this? The Goddard School in Scottsdale is one of 50 locations across the nation participating in the 8th annual toy test. Toy manufacturers send in their latest and greatest where the kids put them through their paces.
We're playing doctor.
Is it fun? Is this a cool toy?
a lot of engineering type of toys, so they can build, they can create.
You won't find any electronic toys or any video games here. The goal to find toys that encourage children to use their senses while playing and learning.
They were chosen for something that's called STEM, is what we try to teach our children. It stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So them exploring through these types of toys teach them those different concepts.
While the kids play, educators watch carefully to see how the kids react to the toys and to see how long the kids stay interested in that particular toy. They'll compile their findings, and come November, the Goddard School will produce their annual top 10 toy list.
Oh, it's very exciting. It's Christmas for them today as they get to explore through the different toys and getting their perspective on what is a fun toy to them.
In Scott,
your exclusive AccuWeather forecast with Dave Muncy on Fox 10 News.
Well, hi, folks. Big night last night with the lunar eclipse. Things are looking pretty good around the city today. And the temperatures are 100 degrees right now. We've got a few clouds out there. Those winds flipping around a little bit. Southwest now at 10 miles an hour. 50 degrees on the dew point, 19%. On the humidity, temperatures 98 at Deer Valley, 99 in Mesa, 101 at Fountain Hills, 100 right now in Ahwatukee. You can see that the moisture is staying north of us here. We have a little bit of cloudiness that's filtering through the state. We've seen that over the last day or so. It's been very, very sunny, but we've seen a few clouds here and there, and it has been warming up. 104 degrees our high today. The norm is 96, 101 in Scottsdale, 102 in Glendale, 102 at Luke. We have 108 for the record, and as I mentioned, 96 is your normal high temperature. Other numbers that we have, 86 at Prescott, 80 at the Grand Canyon, 102 at Gila Bend today. Look at that normal line. We are going to stay warm for a couple of days here. You can see those 105 sneaking in there, but we will get down to the seasonal norm of 93 degrees by the time this 10-day forecast is over. 104 on the high, 80 on the low. 96 and 72 would be your normal high and low. Record high 108, record low at 50 across the country. This is the big mess right here. A couple of low pressure systems. In fact, they're watching both of them for any tropical influence that they might have. They have really been causing trouble. 5 to 12 inches have been flooding through the entire area. All of this area has flood watches up at this time. And as you can see, lots of moisture flooding into that area. 80 degrees overnight. We'll see a few clouds. Sunny by tomorrow, 104 degrees. And as you can see here, we continue on with a very warm week. Midweek, we go to 105. We stay there a couple of days. There is your weekend, though. It's looking pretty good. Your Saturday and your Sunday. And of course, Sunday, the Walk for Hope to cure breast cancer at the Phoenix Zoo. We'll give you more information on that as the week progresses. Not a bad night, though. Watch your kids around water.
All right, thank you, Dave. And Dave, like I said a little bit earlier, is having a very, very special milestone coming up on Wednesday. 40 years right here. Isn't that amazing? Right here on this station. This is truly an awesome milestone, and we can't wait for Wednesday. It's going to be hump day, but more importantly, it's going to be a 40-year celebration. So we are really looking forward to that. It's coming up on 9 o'clock, which means if you are in Arizona, you know what to do. You got to turn over to Fox 10 for their 9 o'clock newscast. Lots of stuff going to be covered, including an update on that 43rd Avenue crash that has one person in custody after he tried to get away from police and then caused a horrible accident that sent 6 people to the hospital. You are going to want to hear an update from that story. And then also, you know, Dave will be back live, and I just really want to know when all these these temperatures are really going to drop. So I'm hoping that we get closer to the November kind of weather. That's what we're all hoping for. But thank you all so much for hanging out with me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's been a great day. We started off the week strong, and Kinsey will be back for 6:30 tomorrow. I'll be back on at noon tomorrow. So if you want to check me out, I'll be back on at noon till 1:30, and then Samia will be in between those times. So appreciate everybody watching. Thank you so much for just hanging out with me. And I will see you all tomorrow. And thank you all again for the great birthday wishes. I really appreciate it, guys. Everyone have a safe and happy day.